Welcome back. This is Data Innovation Summit 2019. I'm here with a couple of friends from Solita, and we're going to be talking about getting rid of the hot air and going to production, how you actually really do it. Please feel free to introduce yourselves.
All right. Hey everyone, my name is Lasse Girs. I'm a consultant at Solita.
Hello. Okay. Hey, I'm Jussi Olkkonen. I'm also a consultant from Solita.
Solita. When you say it like that, it sounds Finnish. What is Solita?
It's just a name that somebody came up with.
So-
It means something in some languages, but it's not.
I take it it's a company.
Yeah, it is.
What do you guys do?
We are 750 people doing anything from data engineering to AI solutions and different kind of digital services and basically what we do with Lasse mostly is data strategy and interpreting the business needs into technical solutions and new business models and organizational changes and so on.
Have you been working with data analysis for a long time, or has it been from software development, or how has the journey been?
Solita is from 2003, and from the beginning it was a lot of work with Nokia and the mobile phone industry. Basically technical development, but all the time there has been a lot of work with data. And lately, late 5 years or so, we've grown the data science and data development and consulting team into over 200 people. So we're.
Is that in response to customer demand, or is that because you guys foresee that being an important facet of development at companies?
Yeah, I want to say it's probably both. There's obviously, we have our own view of the world, but we have a lot of customers and some of them are pretty demanding too, so we've seen. But yeah, the company's been around from traditional performance reporting in BI to then modern type of agile analytics and using cloud and so on. But yeah.
Okay. Do you guys have special platform preferences? Or how do you tend to approach digitalization, let's say?
Yeah. We approach it with business challenges, and we have developed some own tools, but basically we are technology agnostic.
Okay, cool.
So whatever works the best,
Yeah.
that we will use.
I have gone scaled up and scaled down in my own company, where 5 years ago big data systems were cool, and now I'm back at Vim and and a hex editor basically, and I feel like there's been so much focus on technology and proof of concepts and the novel facets of all these things that actually hitting the ground with your tires and going into production has become lost. You see these teams of data scientists, innovation teams, or centers of excellence, or there's many names for these teams, and they're doing cool stuff, allegedly.
Yep.
And then they seldom go into production, and I hear a number of reasons that both that it's that nobody cares about what they're doing because they're not actually doing stuff that the business cares about, but that there are also platform challenges, and I'm not sure it's quite as much that. So in your experience now, in the cases where things are not able to go into production, what are the typical blockers?
How I see it is that companies are doing, or if we divide the companies that are successful in being data driven or growing the business through data, what they are doing is that from the beginning they are tackling core business problems with data and AI solutions. And the ones that are not that successful, they are starting a hackathon or starting an innovation lab or starting something like that, which means that they are keen on method.
That's super interesting. Let's pause because I think
Yeah.
this is very central. So you said some companies start an innovation lab, and what do the successful companies do?
Instead of like typically going into the data set and looking for something that you could do with that, that gravitates to outer borders of the business easily, because you don't then come back to the core business.
It tends to be very low impact.
Yeah, it has We have some cases where the impact is, there might be in this innovation lab like 60 to 100 people working, but the business potential calculated together is like 1/10 of a percent from the whole company's current business.
Yeah.
Because that tends to tends to gravitate to these kind of things, and the very key question is that is the first issue a method or a data set, or is the first issue a core problem or core challenge in the core business? So if it's the first one, so we have to improve our core process, or we have to increase the sales in our biggest sales channel. When that's the problem, then it tends to become the data work tends to become business critical.
Right.
And then when it's business critical, the companies that has gone that path, they are seeing like 300% improvement in core process. But the ones that are doing the innovation lab or hackathons or whatever are seeing a lot of investments going somewhere and nothing coming to production, because there is a big gap. Because of course the path going into core business is hard, and you have to also change the culture of the company, ways it works, and that's never fun, because it's about how people work and what they are doing for living, and the other one is just collecting people to do interesting stuff.
Yeah.
And let's also be clear, there's nothing wrong with innovation labs or methods. I'm a methods person myself, but what we're saying is that the problem is if you're doing a method for the sake of a method. So an innovation lab for the sake of an innovation lab, that tends to be a problem because it happens in the periphery. Same thing with data science or AI or ML or agility or putting your people to become scrums or things like that. If they're all method focused and they don't address the core, then that tends to be where companies struggle, and then they don't go into production.
I think a very cool example that people often misunderstand, in my opinion, a lot of people use Uber as an example of a successful company, and the innovation that they brought wasn't necessarily super radical. It was a business innovation rather than a technical one, and that business in specific was matching user demand to taxi availability in real time. That was like a business solution that they came up with, and then they solved it technologically around. And so that's pretty simple to describe in words. And you were saying that people need to change their culture to start thinking about the business centrally. It's almost a platitude now because everybody's saying that. One question is, you have a set of people sitting around a table, decision makers. They don't know what's possible with deep learning. They don't know what's reasonable to expect from data sets, from any. How are they supposed to even imagine? They have a business problem. Our logistics is suboptimal. We're bleeding because of overhead. How are they supposed to know how to approach it, or that they should be focused on analytics, or should it just be analytics can always solve our problems?
No.
They shouldn't be focused on the analytics. They should be focused on the business problem. Whether it's a burning platform, an actual issue that needs to be solved, or some sort of discovery of a new business model, new business opportunity, new service or something else, but they shouldn't be focused on the method, not the analytics. I mean, there are simple cases like one of our clients, we improved their prediction model for optimizing supply and demand. Fairly simple, like the analytics was mostly just like almost BI type of analytics. Huge business impact. So yeah, let's focus less on whether it's this type of deep learning or regression or random forest or things like that. It's more about the business problem.
But does the message then mean that every decision maker should understand that if there's a business problem, it can be solved with analytics in general?
Yeah, not every business problem can be solved with that, but what we usually do if we simulate the situation with the board of directors, what we do is that we usually build hypotheses on preliminary ideas where you could find the value in the core business through data.
Right.
And then we have a very good method is to say that we have to all agree on goals, on business goals, and they cannot be 15% improvement. They have to be 200% improvement or 300. Not because
Reasonable?
yeah, that is reasonable. And why is it important is that it forces the people to think the Uber way.
Yeah.
Because I've seen a taxi company in Finland which has exactly 10 times more costs in the structure, because all of the parts of Uber are different systems and different organizations. So if you think only improving the taxi business with 15%, you end up like shaping the curves. But when you force or have a discussion with the board of directors of a big company that this and this process, we think there is a lot of room for innovation through data or machine learning or AI, let's think if we could improve this by 300%. And
That's a pretty big change in a business model, I'd say, if you could achieve that.
Yeah, and we always tell them that tech is easy, culture is hard, because it's very easy then to, or it might be quite obvious where the value might come from, and you can even collect the data and structure it that way so that you can prove that.
Yeah.
But the next thing is how you change the organization operating that way. And that's painful and difficult.
Does it start from the top, or can it be grassroots?
It usually goes like we replace a part of the process with the new one that is data driven, where we prove the number, let's say 200%, and do it, and then start scaling it up, because once it's proven when it's in production in a core process in a company, everybody else stops and starts looking, what the hell are these guys doing? Why are they getting this kind of numbers and improvements? And then through successful new way of working, everybody else starts picking pieces and starting to get interested. But as long as the development is somewhere far away from the core business in a different instance, and people are doing something that is completely new for the company, it doesn't affect any way in the core business.
And there are other elements to the culture change too. I mean, yeah, impactful business results, massive impact, but there are other things like improving the language. People talk about data literacy, sponsorship, the roles of people, how you organize the ways of working. Do you embrace innovation, which means that you also accept and you actually embrace failure as well as success. So there are lots of elements to the cultural change than just the business results. But yeah, like we keep saying, get to the core of the business. Back to your question of what do we talk with executives? There are a couple of interesting themes around data that executives really relate to. One of them is like building the asset of data. So data as an asset, which you can't put that on your balance sheet, but a lot of companies are evaluated through their data assets, and that's something that companies should start investing more in. Equally than the algorithm asset. So if Google is a data asset company, then something like Netflix is an algorithm asset company, because their real value is, yes, it's in the data, but equally much in actually having the best algorithms. And then you get into other things around ethics of the algorithm and stuff like that. So there are methodological themes that you can talk with executives, but it's maybe not so much deep learning, but there are things around like, what does data mean for your asset management, and then the ethics of AI and things like that.
Well, even machine learning researchers have a hard time talking about deep learning, but even fundamental things like, let's say some executive says our profit margins are too small. How do we solve that? And they might not be creative enough to think in terms of statistics, so that they say, well, wouldn't it be good if we knew the profitability of these products so that we could go into negotiations better?
Yeah.
Just to think of that might be a hurdle that's too high, because it might not be obvious that the end-to-end lifecycle profitability can be calculated somehow using a big data platform or something like that.
Yeah.
They might not be aware that that's possible. To them, they have a gut feeling about things, and maybe that's also a blocker, that they think they know, but they don't really know.
Well, yeah, gut feel and especially leaders who've been around for a long time, they tend to rely on that. But we all know that we humans, we're I don't want to say that we're worse decision makers than machines, but we're different. And we tend to be biased by a lot of different things. So yeah, it's anytime you can challenge somebody using data to prove that, hey, you know what, I'm seeing there's this deficiency or there's inefficiency or there's value in what you're doing, and you show that through data, then you can find those blind spots pretty quickly in almost any organization.
Yeah, no, hypothesis work is very good way of doing it. It's kind of a method that we use before the POCs, like building hypotheses that if you would have this set of data, and we know that most probably we can get it out of your systems, then if you use it this way, then you can see the whole supply chain,
Right.
and you can predict it, which completely changes the way you guide the sales or guide the product development and guide the production.
Right. I think we should have a couple of takeaways here. I like two things especially that we've said in this discussion. One was the 200% goal rather than the 15% marginal improvement goal. And I think it's very easy. Those are like low-hanging fruits, the 15%. So I think that's what a lot of people target. But they should be targeting the 200% rather the things that are business central.
Yeah.
And the other one is precisely that, which is don't start on the edges, start in the middle. And so the root of this discussion was, how do we go into production? You mentioned that you guys do something that we do also with our customers, which is have sort of catalyst workshops with decision makers to try to get them data literate and try to get them creative about and talking about what are actual business problems. Instead of starting with the IT department and checking what kind of platforms are in place and that kind of thing. Is that the right way to start, rather than hiring a couple of PhDs and giving them laptops?
Facilitated workshops for ideation, or where you described that, tends to be, it's been a good method. We don't have a lot of results on it, but it's something we've been doing. Sometimes we start doing it after the data lake has been built, but ideally, obviously, we get to it before. We're running a workshop here today as well about how do you build a data strategy. So yes, workshops where you bring together different skills and functions, like your IT, your data science, but then your business leaders, get your marketing folks there, your salespeople, and your operations folks. Because just the value of having them in one place, and they can talk about something that is a little bit new to all of them, which is the data opportunity, and then you start getting value out of it. It starts breaking silos. Organizational silos are one of the biggest barriers to success, whether it is about data or anything else. So that already helps a lot. But yeah, facilitated innovation type of sessions are a good method, but it has to lead to action,
right?
And that action has to be towards the core. But
one thing we've thought was nice is during those sessions we have had people from business units. We've never had IT in them. We've always had from business units, but from business units that don't always necessarily even talk to each other.
Yeah.
And so they haven't been in the same room together saying, well, that's not how we measure a sold unit. Oh, so we start talking about data. And after that, they tend to become V teams. And I'm not sure if that's the best setup to use a V team, but it's been working quite well to build bridges between departments, rather than having a center of excellence where you have a bunch of really clever people and they're by themselves, that you have these V teams that are cross department.
Because you have to go over the silos one way or another. You can have the team. Usually the best method, or maybe that's not a method, but by our experience, you need half PO or someone who is willing to take the hits in running over the silo from the organization.
We need to talk about this because we need to fit this in the time that we have. We've spoken about data evangelists or perhaps visionaries or like people that are willing to spearhead this and bring people together.
Yeah.
And that's sort of what it sounds like to me. And one of the things I want to ask you about is people that are afraid to go into production until the model is perfect or until they trust the data or that kind of thing. And I've seen companies go into production with sort of half-done systems, and it's not the end of the world. And once they're there, they improve it and they keep moving forward.
Yeah.
What is your experience with that? How far do they need to get to in order to go into production?
I mean, well, just back to the role. We tend to talk about product owners. That's kind of the term we prefer, product owners. So it's somebody who's accountable for not just the backlog, but the whole strategy and vision of what it is that you're doing,
Is that
your
a chief
project.
data officer, or what do you mean?
It could be, but it can also be a little bit more of an operational role. So somebody who's actually making sure that kind of protecting the development team, liaising with the different stakeholders typically in business and making sure that you have your priorities straight and it fits with the business strategy. But it's somebody who understands technology, business, and also gets stuff done. And it's a really hard role to fill. It's difficult to find those people, but if you find them, you've got to hold on to them. That's for us, it's almost like in
So-
top 3 of success.
That's
To
something
my experience, the best case is they can be found from the business unit.
Yeah,
I was about to ask, is that an IT or a business person?
more business.
More business, and if you can find it from business, then you're lucky. And they are special persons, because normally in the big organizations, people tend to be afraid of the silos, and they don't go, and they tend to run with the goals from their own silo. But once you find, and then you can have, as said, we had some bank where we did, or an insurance company where we improved years ago, the online sales of insurances, and we found a product owner or a business lead to it that committed that we're gonna make this 10 times higher, because it was low at that time. 10 times more insurance sales online. And in there, what we did then with her was that we went through different hypotheses how we get it 10 times more, and then we went into production with the first one. We got little improvements, then we learned from that and improved the other hypotheses that we had, and it was quite incredibly short time that it took
Let me
to
ask you about
tenfold
going
that.
into production. You said the first production wasn't the 10 times turnout that you expected.
No.
How did they continue after that? Was that a failure? Did it have bad effects?
No, with the right kind of business leader or product owner, it's just one step on the road.
So people shouldn't necessarily be afraid of going into production with something that they're not sure of.
No, and of course you can limit the how you go to production, and usually, or you can A/B test, or you can through IP you can limit the audience or something. So it's no way you should be ready, because that's kind of crazy idea that you have to have everything ready and you have to guess everything beforehand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that I notice in some organizations,
And
that
that's
you are
why it never
afraid
goes
of.
to production.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some fields where you have to be like in. I worked a lot with healthcare, so there are some elements where like you absolutely have to have everything in place. But most part of business, you can iterate and you can launch an MVP or a pilot or a proof of concept or your sprint 1, whatever you call it, and then start building on it. But that leads back to the culture and the ways of working. If your organization has always built, waterfall and everything perfect, it's going to be really hard to move them to thinking of, agile working in one sprint at a time. And so those are other considerations of becoming data-driven.
I think most companies have these people that would work well as the spearhead, and we tend to call them enthusiasts.
Okay.
They're the people that have made their own pivot tables in Excel because there's no system support, and they sort of figure things out. They go and ask, hey, I know you have that data, can you give it to me and I'll figure it out? And they have everything on their laptop, poor guy or girl, and they're doing it all on their own. So I think that in every organization you have that type of person.
Yeah,
And
you
if
just
they-
have to find it.
Yes, and if you could
Been there,
just
done that.
let that person shine by, giving them some proper attention, I think that's a good place to start.
Agree.
Yeah, and that's by our experience one of the most critical things in going into production or achieving these radical business goals. You have to find that person. You have to do other things as well, but that's one of the first things you have to do is to find that person from the organization, because you can't do it from outside.
Right.
And give him or her the mandate and sort of the possibility to build, even if the first couple of takes aren't successful. Like the mandate is key.
All right.
Yeah.
So we can help because we come from outside into the organization, so we can help, we can be the bridge from this person to the top management.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Alrighty then. I think we have a couple of good takeaways from this. I think it does fly a little bit against what people say, that you should get started and go for the low-hanging fruit. But I think it's better to say that you should aim for the 200% transformation and go to production quickly.
Yes.
That's a lower hanging fruit that has the potential to actually give big gains.
Yes.
Not just go into production and then not have any gains.
And if you're really desperate for fruit, then like that's your business case, and go for the low-hanging fruit if you want to build on that.
Sure enough.
But yeah.
But there has
Sometimes fruit is good.
Yeah, fruit is very good. But you have to, in order to affect the core business, you have to have the long time vision, what you are trying to do, and then there are bits and pieces that you do put into production in a way there.
Well, the long-time vision can only come from the business. So
Yes.
Yep.
I guess that's where that central person comes in.
Yep.
Yeah. And the mandate from the top management.
Right. All right. Well, thank you both for your time. It was an interesting talk, and I think I'm going to raise these topics again with the panels that come later.
Yeah.
200% and all that kind of thing. So you guys are going to be here the rest of the 2 days. Any of you that are out there in the ether, you'll have to make sure to look up Solita. And you guys are active in the Nordics, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And Germany.
All right, excellent. Thanks for being here.
Thanks
Yes.
for having us.
Thank you.